So I had to decide what to do for my next project, and I decided that I hadn't done any armour for quite a long time. So I've decided that I really want to get back in and do a bit of armour. And what I've chosen for my next project, my next armour project, is the M247 Sgt York. Now the Sgt York was an anti-aircraft design from the late 70s, early 80s, intended for the US Army. It was a new turret on top of an M48 chassis. The idea being that they could have organic air defence, which would be able to keep up with the then coming into service things like the M1 Abrams and the M2 Bradley, which were able to cover ground quickly, and they needed something to be able to keep up with it. This was the design that they came up with, the M247 Sgt York, which was designed by Ford Aerospace. Sadly, it was a complete disaster from start to finish. For whatever reason, they never managed to get the radars and the gun controls integrated properly. So there were lots and lots of problems. It never really worked, and it ended up being cancelled in about 1985-86, around about that time, when it was realised that they were never going to sort it out. It was just a complete disaster of a system. However, it wasn't cancelled before Tamiya gave us this kit in the early 80s. So it's a kit that I haven't seen around for a while. I managed to grab a couple of them off of eBay in the last week or two. So I really fancied building this. So just to have a quick look into the model. So there's the hull and turret, and it's really a very big turret on this vehicle. Not very low profile at all. It would have been stood out like a sore thumb, I think, which would have potentially another problem. Anyway, the Tamiya kit is very nice. We've got the old belly parts from an M48 tooling with, as you can see here, holes in it for motorisation, which was popular at the time in Japan. But this mates to a new hull top and turret. And then we've got things like all the running gear here, and some stowage, and then some of the minor parts. We've got a nice crewman here, and all the other parts for the gun system, the gun barrels here, and all that sort of thing. So really quite a nice kit, and very much of its time. And I look forward to building it. The tracks are old vinyl style tracks, which I have ordered some replacement tracks, some Lincoln, some individual link tracks. So we'll see how that goes when they turn up, because I really want to replace them, because the track on this vehicle is very visible. So anyway, that's intended to be my next project. So hopefully, as the build progresses, I'll take you through the build. So stay tuned. Okay, so one of the first minor issues we've got with the model is that, as I say, as I previously mentioned, we've got holes in the underside of the main hull for the motorisation that was popular in Japan in the 70s and 80s. Sometimes Tamiya would include blanking pieces for these. In this particular instance, I can't find them, so we're going to have to deal with these holes in a bit more of an old-fashioned sort of way. I'm not too bothered about it because it's the underside of the hull. I'm just doing it for completeness, really. But as long as it's generally more or less filled, I'll be happy. So all we're going to do is I'm going to cut some plastic sheet, roughly to size, to back these up. And you can see how you can see how roughly I'm doing this. Okay, it just needs to and use a bit of super glue. And, like so. Okay, so then we're going to I've managed to make that not quite big enough there, so there we go. Good enough, and then I'm just going to spray a bit of kicker in there. That's just to set the super glue. Okay, so as you can see, we've filled these areas now. So what I need to do is just add some, or I've backed these areas with plastic sheet. So what I need to do is fill these areas now. And for this, I'm going to be using some car repair filler. So I'm just squeezing a bit out onto a, if I bring it out, hopefully you'll be able to see this. Okay, so I'm just squeezing a bit out. Onto there. Squeeze some of the hardener out. And then it's just using something to mix them together. So I'm just going to clip a bit of spray screw off. And then we're going to mix okay, so I'm going to bring you back in now. To these areas. And then it's just a case of Now this stuff does tend to go off quite quickly. You know, you've got a few minutes of working time and then it starts to set up, but that's something which in a second, hopefully as it starts to go off, we can turn that actually to our advantage. So like I said, you can see that it's, I'm doing a very rough, not at all fussy sort of filling job on here. Like I said, it's a part of the model that's never going to be seen really. So to be honest, you could probably get away without doing this at all if you felt that way inclined. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just leave that for a few minutes. To start going off. So here we are. Well, here we are a few minutes later. One of the tricks I want to show you is when you're using car repair putty, as it starts to go off, it kind of takes on the texture of what I best described as frozen butter. The good thing about this is that you can slice away large quantities of it. I'm using a razor blade here, as you can see. And just slicing away there, look. Hopefully you can see that, where I've sliced away all the majority of the excess, and really does minimise the sanding. You've got a few minutes to do this kind of thing before it goes off, and it's too hard to do it. To me, I do a product, a polyester putty, which is much the same as this in terms of usage, but is much finer grained. So it's great for filling jobs where it matters. I'm using the car repair putty here, which is quite coarse grained actually. But I'm using the car repair putty because, as I said, it's out of the way and it's just a quick filling job. So as you can see, there's a majority of that dealt with. So that just needs to be allowed to set for another few minutes. And then we can look at sanding that out. So after another few minutes, this is dry enough for me to do some sanding to level it off. So I'm just using a coarse, skinny sander. Just to get rid of the bulk of what's still standing proud, which is really very little. And to be honest, Okay, that's pretty much that done, so I'm just going to give that a wipe over. And that's those more or less filled. There's a little bit, I'll need to do a little bit of extra filling, which I'll do in a second. One of the other things which I've noticed is, due to the way that Tamiya have done this multi-part mould, there's a seam line running right through the middle of all the running gear. Well, the running gear mounts as it is. It's not too obtrusive. All I'm going to do is work along each part like that with my skinny sander, removing the join. And then polishing it away with some fine wet and dry. And that is all I'm going to be. That's all I'm going to be doing with this. So I'll continue working around this. And what I'll do is I'll see you when we're ready to continue construction. So I've got a little bit more filling to do on here, and sanding, removing these panel lines, or removing these seam lines. And then we'll be ready to start some of the running gear, so stay tuned. Right, so we filled this and sanded the underside here where the holes were. We've removed all of the seam lines around the lower hull. And what I've also done is started adding the final drive housings here. Now what we've got to do is look at adding the suspension for the running gear. And this is on these screws here. So what I'm going to do is make sure we've got the right parts. So A7. I'm not too panicked about joining seam lines and stuff. I'm just going to make sure I've scraped and removed the most visible ones. And then we need to look at how this locates, and we can see it goes in quite nicely. So with it located in place, all I'm going to do is add a tiny drop of MEK, line it up, and another drop at the front and hold it in place. And that's it. Now it's just a case of working around on the instructions, making sure you've got the right parts for the right places, because the numbers do differ from sprocket to sprocket. So that's all we're doing here. I'm just going to build up the suspension. Okay, so there's the model with all the running gear in. I might have to do a tiny little bit of filling around some of the bump stop parts here. On the other hand, I might be tempted to just ignore it, because that's how the model's going to sit when it's finished. So those parts are essentially going to be invisible, so potentially I'll just ignore it, just so you can see it's all going to sit under these sponsons here and be completely invisible, so I shall probably ignore those parts. So what I want to do next is I just want to build the main sprockets up. So that's the running gear assembled without the road wheels and stuff. I've assembled the sprockets now. The sprockets will locate onto there to help me build the track up. The rest of the running gear, in terms of the road wheels and idlers, I will deal with individually before adding them to the model, because I want to paint them off the model before bringing it together. The essential idea is that I'll do the entire lower hull, get it up on its tracks and painted before adding the upper hull. Some people prefer to build as much of the model as they can before they add or start painting. I've never been a big fan of that. I like to, I've tried it and I just find it's too fiddly, so I like to build it in two separate halves, if you will. So that's what we're doing. So hopefully next time I'll be dealing with all this, I'll be dealing with all the running gear here and painting it, and maybe getting some paint on the lower hull as well. Okay, so with all the running gear on the lower hull, as you saw earlier, I've assembled the sprockets as well. We need to deal with the road wheels, idlers, and things like that. The first thing we need to do is basically just get them all clipped off and cleaned up. This is a time-consuming part of the job, but it's necessary to do the best job you possibly can for a good finished effect. So essentially, once we've got the road wheel off, it's just a case of trimming off the sprue tags like so, and then I'm just going to use a piece of 400 grit wet and dry around the perimeter of the wheel here, just to remove any of the mould seams and stuff. And then just a little bit of Scotch-Brite to polish it up. In terms of preparation for the road wheels, that's pretty much it. That's all we need to do. However, we need to do it 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. We need to do it 28 times just for the road wheels. There's 2, 4, 6. There's 6 road wheels each side, 1 idler and a sprocket, each of which have 2 parts. So we need to be doing this 28 times. So little tub there just to keep the parts in as they come off the sprues. But sadly, this is one of those parts of building armour which there's not really any quick and easy way. It's literally working through it slowly and carefully. Until we're all done. And that's it. So what I'm going to do is obviously I'm going to carry on with this, and I'll catch up with you again when we've got all the road wheels cleaned up, and also the return roller returns and stuff like that that all needs doing. Right, well, it's time to start adding some paint to the lower hull and workings. Now for the for the running gear, initially I'm going to paint all of the running gear black, and for that I'm going to use Valero's black primer. Valero's primers, I really like the way they go on, I like the way they dry, but I find that you can't really sand them for days and days and days. So if my advice is, if you're going to be priming something to check for flaws, use a more solvent based primer such as Tamiya's or Humbrol's primers, because they will bite into the plastic and you can sand them quite quickly. If you're literally priming just for top coats, I would recommend the Valero primers. They're great. As all I'm doing here is going to be painting this whole lot, and the return idlers, the return rollers black. I'm happy for Valero's primer to be the one I use in this instance. I'm just going to shut my laptop down there so no overspray gets onto the screen. Okay, so I'm just checking the flow through my brush. Checking that I've got a good flow, adjusting the pressure of it till I'm happy. Now I'm not going to be thinning this, so it's going straight into the colour cup. Check the flow. I'm laying down a generous coat. It does shrink back very nicely, and the way I do these things is, as you can see, I go all parts from all directions. Making sure I've got good coverage. And there we go, so it's just a case literally of working our way over the rest of these road wheels. And that's the one side of them all done. As you can see, that only took me a very few minutes to do. What I'll do now is I'll let that dry off, and then I'll have to flip them all over and go from the other side. But I've also got to do all of the return rollers. Okay, so I've got all of these, the road wheels here. They're sprayed both sides now, and we need to let that dry, and then we can go about painting the actual wheels themselves and leaving the rubber parts in black. So the other thing I wanted to prime today was the main hull. Now, on the basis that the other part I wanted to prime today was the main hull with the all the suspension stuff that I'd already added, and for that, because I'm anticipating there might be a little bit of extra work, or just because I don't need any of these areas to be in black for the road wheels and rubber and stuff on the finished model. I'm going to use a lighter, a grey primer for this, and what I'm going to use is Humbrol's grey primer. This has been soaking in some warm water for a few minutes to increase the pressure. Give it a good shake. Now, as with most spray primers, you'll find that this will put down a lot of paint, so you need to work quickly and go as lightly as you can. So again, making sure you cover all the angles to get good coverage. As with most primers these days, you can it doesn't matter that much if you go a little bit heavy. Most primers these days do dry very, very fine and tightly down to the surface, and this is no different. So whilst you don't want to be flooding the model, you know, if the surface is a little bit wet, it won't make any difference. And having this in warm water for 5 or 10 minutes to increase the pressure means that although more paint is coming out, it is atomising far more finely, so it doesn't have a tendency to run and pull as much. And that's the whole done. Okay, so as I say, that's the hull done. The road wheels are done, so we need to actually paint the road wheels next, and also the all the idlers. So we're still a fair way away from starting to work on the top half of the model, but we're plugging along. So next time I see you, we'll look at painting the road wheels themselves. Right. Well, I've got the road wheels, as you can see here. They've been primed with black, and now we're ready to actually paint the wheels themselves, so it'll leave us a rubber rim. And what we're going to use to paint the wheels themselves is a circle template like this. So I've had a look around, and the 17mm is a dead fit for that, and it will just act as a mask. So before we do that, what we need to do is take some masking tape, like so, and then we're just going to mask the holes around our 17mm. This stops any paint overspray hopefully getting through and into your onto the other side of the wheel. And I won't lie, it also makes it easy at a quick glance to see which one which particular mask you're using. So I'll just bring this in a tiny little bit. Okay, one of the other things that needs to be done is the underside. The hull underside needs to be painted, and the sprockets. Now, being in a vehicle from the early 80s, I want to do it in one of the standard US Army MERDC schemes, which is a variety of schemes all using the same camouflage pattern with different colours to suit different environments. The scheme I want to do this one in was one that was called Europe Summer. The European Winter Verdant scheme, which basically is a green and brown with some sand and black crow's feet in it. The actual colour used for the drab was called Field Drab, and the federal standard number was 30118. But in most senses it was pretty much equivalent to sort of RAF Dark Earth. I've got a mix of Tamiya Dark Earth here that I've made up using various colours previously, which I'm going to use. They do a Flat Earth XF52, which is really quite red, and also there's a later colour is XF72, which is Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force brown. I've looked at that, and that's actually a pretty good equivalent of Dark Earth as well, perhaps a little bit dark and still a little bit red. So I'm going to start my compressor up. and I'm just going to, first off I'm going to find my Mr. Colour levelling thinner, because that's my thinner of choice. I'm just going to spray a tiny little bit through this. Okay, going to make sure my paint is thoroughly mixed, and what I'm also going to do is add a little bit of XF22 clear into the mixture. Hopefully it'll just give it a little bit of a satin finish, which will help make it a little bit tougher. So I'm adding probably 20 or 30% of gloss to the mix. A good glug of Mr. Colour thinner. I'll mix it in the cup like so. The cup's quite full here, so I'd like to use the lid if I can find it, which is there. And I'm just going to check my flow, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to test out how our coverage on the idlers here. And as you can see, coverage is pretty quick and simple with that. So yeah, that's gone on okay, and appears to be drying to a reasonably slightly, not quite dead flat eggshell finish. So one of the things I'm going to do while I'm painting these wheels is I'm only going to paint the portion that's going to be visible. So if you can imagine, the outside of the wheel will be visible, but the backside here on the model is going to be completely invisible from any angle you can see it. And with the inner road wheels, again, the front face, but the back face, which is going to be like so on the vehicle, you'd have to actually pick the vehicle up and look in like that, which is realistically not going to happen. And if it does, there are other issues there that will that should have been dealt with anyway. So I'm only going to paint the visible portion. So the idea is, that the road wheel locates like so. It takes a very few seconds and that's it done. So then it's just a case of now of working your way down the road wheels. Now, typically on these camouflage schemes, a few of the road wheels will have been the second colour, so I'll choose a green. I'll leave a few of these black, and then I'll choose a green and paint a few of them green as well. There's 7 road wheels per side, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 3 of the road wheels in green and 4 of them in brown. So I need to do 8 of these outer road wheels in brown. Two, 4, 6, 7. So I need to do one more of these outer road wheels in brown. But hopefully that lets you see how quickly you can paint road wheels using this method. So I'm going to continue through with doing the inner portions. Like so, and I'll see you when I've done that and we're ready to do the hull. Okay, so I've done all the road wheels. They're all, I'll put them just out of the way over here. All the brown road wheels, that is. There's a couple of green ones, but I'll do them later. So I also need to do the lower hull in the field drab, as it was called, which is the brown colour. So I've got plenty left in the brush there, so I'm happy to start. Misting the lower hull with this colour. I'm not worrying about any kind of weathering or fading or anything at this point. It's just a case of getting the model covered in a base coat. Lots of awkward angles and things, so make sure you go from every angle you can think of. Check my brush again because I used quite a lot of paint. Yeah, we're still fine. So I might have to add a bit more paint in a minute. Yeah, it's just... I'm happy to lay down quite a lot of paint because it's well primed. Which helps resist running. And there we go. As I said, this is all about just getting the base coat on because I'm doing the lower hull before I add the upper hull to the model and getting it basically painted. So that's it, pretty much done, and I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I will clean my airbrush out, and then I will look at adding there's a few road wheels here that, as I previously discussed, need to be green. So I'll pick a suitable green and paint those with a template. And hopefully the next time I see you we'll be ready to actually put some of this together.